Still think you can get away with it? Night City's law enforcers have upped their game. Investigate.
Surround her! Street scum's beating our ass!
Huh?
The last time I was in this green screen room talking about Cyberpunk 2077, it was under very different circumstances because that game was in some hot water. But it's been a few years now. Cyberpunk's went through a lot of updates, but the one you're here for is Cyberpunk 2.0, the most anticipated update that Cyberpunk has ever gotten, next to the expansion that's coming out. But before we can even consider an expansion, we gotta know, is Cyberpunk finally the Cyberpunk we always wanted? Well, before jumping into Cyberpunk 2.0, I made what I'm calling the Cyberpunk hit list. I tried to think of all of the things that were kind of immersion breaking or things that could use improvement, and I put them all on a board so when I played the new update and I made notes of what I found in the new update, I could cross-reference it with my hit list and kind of see where we stand on the improvements. I also started off from a save that had about 10 to 15 hours in it prior to the update. That way I could just jump straight into the content without having to do the story stuff all over again.
You playing fucking high?
So immediately upon booting up my save, I get a call from Victor, and he's like, hey, we got some new stuff at the Ripper dock.
Some news trickled down the Ripper grapevine.
But you gotta pay your debt off first, because you haven't done that part of the story yet. And then the game promptly notified me that all of my skills were removed from my skill tree. One of the biggest upgrades in Cyberpunk 2.0 is the skill tree. So if you don't know how it works, you have different attributes, like for your strength, for your agility, for your cool factor, for your technical ability, and within these attributes, you have a skill tree for them. And prior to this update, they were typically just stat boosts, like hack something 5% faster, get 5% more stamina, regenerate health twice as fast while taking damage, stuff like that. Very, very, very simple. But now you actually have different abilities that you gain from upgrading that skill tree. So if you're upgrading your agility, you'll have the ability to do things like dash in midair, or jump out of a moving car, or pull the handbrake and shoot at the same time as you're driving. Oh, and you can shoot out of your car too now. Big improvement there, that's really cool. And you'll be locked off to different tiers that you can upgrade within this skill tree until you actually upgrade the level. So now you actually have real tangible reasons to focus on upgrading one specific part of your skill tree. And this also carries over to the Ripper dock.
Let's see what's good.
Take your pick.
See, before when you were getting your cybernetic implants, it was pretty simple. You got the cash to do it, you do it, okay, that's it. Well, now you can only do so many upgrades to your body until you upgrade that section in the attributes to allow you to modify your body further. God, I can't talk. Different quick hack abilities or different things you do with your cyberware are going to require you to be at a certain level so you can handle those implants. This is a cool concept because in Cyberpunk Edge Runners, really amazing show, by the way, they really played on this idea of cyberpsychosis and your body actually being physically limited to what you can mentally handle. Did that make sense the way I said it? And now in the game, you have a tangible reason to upgrade your cyberware over here and upgrade your skill tree here. You have a reason to spend your credits and you have a reason to spend your skill points in a certain way that'll actually fit your playstyle. Now it's like you're actually making a build instead of just filling out a stat sheet. So now if you want to be a net runner and you want to have a lot of quick hacking capabilities, you're going to have to upgrade your character a certain way to be able to handle that. Or you could do like me and just try to do everything at once and within 15 to 20 hours of your save not be a fraction of the way through the skill tree at all.
Hey, watch it!
Also, now your clothing isn't armor, so if you're just wearing a standard jacket, you don't gotta worry about that having some kind of armor attribute. Now you can actually physically upgrade your armor at the Ripper dock to get armor implants, kind of like in Edge Runners. And again, when it comes to this upgrading and leveling stuff, I'm really just scratching the surface of it because I haven't been able to get that deep into it. But what I did get deep into was the actual gameplay.
You badges? Nope, not cops. just looking for some intel.
So after changing my skill tree a little bit and messing with my game settings for half an hour because I have some addiction to messing with my PC settings to make sure I'm getting the most optimal experience, I had to see what those police chases were all about. So I guess we can just go ahead and address the elephant in the room here, right? We've all been wondering, where is that police system? And this was one of the most highly anticipated features of Cyberpunk 2.0 because previously the game didn't really have a wanted system. The police would just kind of spawn out of midair. There weren't really levels to the police interactions, so there was really no risk in playing the game. So when I took out some poor civilian and stole his car, I was grinning from ear to ear when I heard that police radio come on.
All nearby units, we got a situation in Watson. Roger, dispatch. What else do you? We'll be right there.
Now you actually have a wanted level, 1 to 5 stars. Police will chase you down and get increasingly harder depending on the amount of havoc you're wrecking. You go from your simple patrol cops all the way up to your max tag. And it's cool because as your wanted level's going up, the musical notes changing and it's getting more intense. There's a lot of little funny voice lines when the police radio is being activated, and that's a nice touch. That really, really livens up the game a good bit. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. For as great of an addition as this police system is, these police are dumb as hell, man.
I got kids, man.
If there's police searching for you, they'll just constantly lose track of where you're at. I could go out into the street, mow down like 30 people, then go hide behind a trash can or something and they wouldn't find me. I'm pretty sure I literally stood in the same spot where I took a cop out. They pulled up on their patrol cars, got out and started searching, and then just kind of gave up.
I will find you.
And then they got back in their car and left, which is a nice touch, by the way. They'll actually get in and out of their cars. But there's definitely some limitations to the system that's going on here. If you're getting chased by like 12 police officers and you go hide somewhere and then your wanted level disappears and you go back out and you just stand right in front of the same people that were just shooting at you, they won't pay you any mind.
I see no patrols.
You can quick hack cars now and get different abilities like being able to make the car floor it into oncoming traffic or slam on the handbrake so you can take the car. What's weird about this though is that it doesn't seem like this quick hack should be traceable, but I'll do this quick hack on a car and then police will immediately get alerted that I did something wrong, which is weird. But if I'm hiding when I do it, then they won't notice that it was me and that I was there. I think there was a couple of times I was able to trigger a car into some pedestrians or a cop and then they got into a little bit of a shootout, but then they just gave up. Like I was trying real hard to get the police to attack other civilians and I just couldn't make it happen.
Please, do not worry about me.
I also kind of noticed that cops would just get stuck in this searching mode and the cars would just kind of barrel into anything that was in front of them. I was always kind of under the impression that they didn't have a working police system in the game because they didn't have a working real traffic system in the game. If you remember, all the cars kind of rode like they were on rails, and if they kind of got into a pileup, they wouldn't try to go around each other, they would just sit there in place. But I noticed they do this weird thing when you use the floor it quick hack on them. When they go back to driving normally, they'll just kind of go at like 3 miles an hour, violently shaking the wheel back and forth. I don't really know what that one's about. It doesn't seem like the NPCs have been changed too much since the last time I played it. Sometimes NPCs will randomly pull a gun out on you, but I had this funny moment where I was aiming a gun at the NPC. They didn't have a weapon on them, they didn't attack me, but then I go and I aim my gun at another NPC, and the first NPC I aimed at pulls a gun out. And although I couldn't get the cops to attack other NPCs really too often, like I could send an NPC's car barreling into a crowd of people right in front of a cop and he'll pay no attention to it. The cops will attack somebody if you walk up to them while they're attacking you, so at least they do that. They gotta protect the order, right?
I cannot piece his protection.
I think there's random events that happen now, like there will be random police chases or shootouts and stuff. I didn't really come across too many of those though. I think I came across it like one time. But since there is a police system in the game now, it does add just a little bit more of that anything can happen vibe to it. And I was hoping I could get a little more creative with it, but it just kind of seems like the AI is a little limited on what they like to do. Also, Trauma Team never seems to show up at all, by the way. That was a little bit of a disappointment.
She's crazy!
While I was messing around a little bit, I was having a little bit more fun with the combat in the game now. Before, I felt like it was a little bit more jank. It felt like there wasn't a lot of feedback when you were hitting some enemies and when they were hitting you. It seemed like you wouldn't really be taking any damage, then you just immediately die. Now it just feels a little bit tighter, a little more refined, a little more responsive. Maybe I'm just crazy. And can somebody tell me if there was a lot of gore in the game previously? I never used the mantis blades in my first playthrough, but you can hack off limbs with it, and I was blowing heads off with the sniper rifle. I don't remember doing that before. Then again, it could have just been the weapons I was using. But for some reason, there's no limb damage to NPCs, which is kind of weird. Melee combat feels like it was tweaked a little bit. And the UI was tweaked a little bit. You can hover over guns and it'll tell you the stats of them. It's a little bit easier to compare things and manage your inventory. But the UI still really sucks when it comes to usables or interacting with trade merchants. I don't know what it is about this. I was hoping this would be improved a little bit, but if you're going and you're buying something from a merchant, they'll be selling like 30 things and there'll be 30 different little icons on the screen that you have to hover over to figure out what it is or what it does. I hate using consumables in this game, like food items. It's really annoying to go into the menu and try to look at what does what. It also seems like you can't use consumables in the middle of combat, which is a little weird. Grenades are rechargeable as well as throwing knives. Were throwing knives in this game before? I'm guessing they were. I don't remember using rechargeable weapons too much. Again, some of this is just playing off of my memory here. Also, while we're on the subject of items and inventory management, it seems like everything has a tier now. I'm not sure if it was like that before, but it's pretty annoying when I have a silencer and it's like, you can't use this silencer with this gun because it's a lower tier item, even though it has the slot where you should just be able to throw a silencer on it. This tier thing affects quick hacks and every other item you can use as well, so it got a little bit confusing, but the gameplay itself is still pretty fun to play.
We haven't met. I'm Elizabeth. My husband and I, we need a somewhat delicate matter handled.
Gotta deal with it. Later. Now we can talk. Go ahead.
My husband.
Finish this another time.
So the gameplay's been refined, the skill tree's been overhauled. It's more fun to actually build a character and play the game. But let's talk about what it's like to be immersed in Cyberpunk. You see, a big issue for me with the game wasn't ever just the gameplay itself, but the actual immersion of being in this world.
Don't take this personally.
You know, when you see a brightly lit open sign in front of a building, a shop, or a bar, and you go into that building and you can't, it's a little immersion breaking. And that's something that hasn't really been addressed in the 2.0 update. There are times in the game where it just looks gorgeous and it's really fun to explore and you always see something new. It's a really great game to look at, but the problem is most of the time, that's all you're gonna be doing.
So who are we supposed to talk to?
You're gonna come across all of these bars and shops and vendors that are just standing in these tightly, densely packed areas and you can't really interact with any of them.
Yeah, sure, just walk right through me.
It seems like a little quick and dirty simple fix would have maybe been to make some generic vendor system and copy and paste it throughout the world. Maybe there would have been some issues with that. I don't know. Is that really a negative thing to knock against the 2.0 update? Is it really fair to criticize it for that? I don't know, man. They've added a lot of cool stuff to the game. You can find weapons now like the thermal katana, which was something that was shown off in pre-release footage but didn't actually make the final build of the game until now. But if you ever looked at mods on the PC version, shooting inside of vehicles has been a thing with mods. Police chases has even been a thing with mods. So all of this content isn't necessarily 100% from the ground up from scratch. They've had some of this implemented as they've been working across the past few years. And I have a strong suspicion that inside of this expansion, it's probably going to address a lot of this, but that's all going to be contained to the expansion side of things itself. You're going to go into Dogtown and it's going to be densely packed with all this stuff, and then you're going to go out into the main part of the game and it's going to be like it's always been. Speaking of it being the way it's always been, you're still playing Cyberpunk here.
Watch out! There's a sniper behind the van!
Huh? Huh?
What's about me?
Occasionally, I'll just come across some visual oddities, like a character holding something that's invisible in their hand, or an NPC just doing a weird thing during a cutscene. All of that still is in place here. I noticed that if you walk away from an NPC during a conversation, they'll acknowledge it. I don't know if they did that before.
The tarot describes a road, so go down it. Okay.
And they'll also acknowledge taking damage or giving damage during gunfights. Or if you do a lot of damage to an NPC, your companion will be like,
Oh, that's a lot of damage!
whoa, you really hurt, you hit him hard. That's another thing that's not in the game is companions. Like you can't meet up with somebody, do activities with them, or have them join you on quests.
Does it look like I give a shit?
Which is weird because I think that was also in mods as well. But to their credit, they have across the board added little things here and there to improve the experience. Which should have been there at the launch of the game. Like, I am complaining about a lot of stuff not being there to do in the world, but they added a couple of arcade machines that are actually playable. I was walking down a hallway somewhere and I just randomly ran into it and I was like, whoa, you couldn't play these before. That's pretty cool. But then the ones that were originally there in the game still aren't playable. So it's kind of a mixed bag, man. It's like, on one hand, they've added some stuff and made it feel better. It overall is a net positive, right? But on the other hand, you're still feeling the limitations of it still being that same Cyberpunk. The game just wasn't designed with some of these changes in mind, so if you're doing something like completing a mission where you're going through a parking lot full of cars and there's a bunch of enemies around, you can't quick hack those cars. There's no train station, which really sucks. I was really hoping they were gonna have that train system added, man. I know it was unfinished in the game, they never put it in there. You still have to go to fast travel points to fast travel around the map. Also, a note for the PC version, I don't know if this is happening to anybody else, but every time I pause the game or I go into a menu and I come out, my game drops to like 2 frames per second for like 5 seconds and then goes back to normal. It's weird, must be a new DLSS or driver thing, I don't know.
Ah! Uncultured swine!
But yeah, man, I don't know. For every nitpick that I can come up with and for every immersive element that I can say isn't in the game, there's an area where they touched it up, like getting out of the Ripper dock and you actually get out of the chair now instead of just pulling up a menu and then closing a menu. But with all that being said, is Cyberpunk 2.0 the Cyberpunk we always wanted? You know, I don't know if that's a fair question to ask. I don't know if the game would have ever lived up to the expectations we had for it. But is it a better game now? Absolutely. I think if you've been on the fence about Cyberpunk for a while and you've always been interested in playing it but never did, I don't think there's ever been a better time to jump into it. And if you're just kind of curious about what's new and you want to spend some time with it, I think you'll get some use out of it here. I've played for about 10 hours now and I haven't scratched the surface of the skill tree system now. There's a lot to unlock, there's a lot of content to do, there's still a lot of Easter eggs and story content in the game. I mean, this is still a pretty big game. But if you were hoping that Cyberpunk was going to be this unprecedented, dynamic, open world experience that you couldn't find anywhere else, you're probably gonna be still let down here. But for what it's worth, man, I did have a lot of moments where I was like, wow, that is pretty cool. I remember when you could pick up Cyberpunk all day for like $5 and now it's going back up in price. For the amount of game you're getting, I think it's worth the effort. But what do you think? How do you feel about Cyberpunk 2.0? Has it gotten you back into it? Let me know in the comments. I don't think I'll cover the expansion because I don't think that anybody genuinely cares about my opinion on that, but hey, if it's something you want to talk about or discuss on the channel, maybe we'll take a look at it. If you don't want to play Cyberpunk, but you want something with a little more funk, go check out my Cyberpunk review that I just did. That video has been doing incredible. If you came from that video, thank you so much. But until then, guys, I'll see you in the next one.
You are worried about agents? Then shoot her in the head.